looks like Alan's making a warehouse.
Yeah.
We missed it. We missed that couple.
Yeah, we didn't do one in January just because I started in January. And we did one for Black History Month in February, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It is on YouTube though, so if you ever want to go back and watch it. We are
featured
recording now actually, but it's fine.
George Washington.
That we can post that for people to
and
we're taking it
he
step by
marched
step
through,
to really
South
make it
Brunswick,
accessible,
just like
to the community
Washington,
as much as we can.
for the Battle of Monmouth and so forth.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about him, and it was I think it went over pretty well.
It was very, yeah.
Yes, yeah, made you come back.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do with the women.
Used to have a lot more people coming to them.
Well, we should
I hope so.
with this deluxe room and all that, but you know, we're nice to get out.
Yeah.
And we're working like step by step. Each meeting, we're doing a little better at connecting with those in the community to be able to come to these. So
Because John was down at our last Kingston meeting. John came and then everybody.
Terry has a meeting tonight.
Yeah,
with like Chris and some other library people. I believe she sent an email. Yeah.
Oh,
But she has a lot to do with.
Is that Kingston one? Is that the T or is that the?
Yeah, well, we had the tea time talks.
yes, we had that on Sunday.
Okay.
That's at the church.
Okay.
Our open house is, I think, in May for the Locktender's house.
You know, you can invite Kellen and me to the T.
Sure.
We could be talk on this, some subject you want to talk on.
Oh, that would be,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
we just,
I like to volunteer Kellen for everything.
well, it's good to show you folks around. That's wonderful. Well, we will definitely think, because we do it January, February, and March. Those 3 months we do the tea time talk.
Okay.
January got snowed out. And February got snowed out. But we finally got the March one.
A sunshine patriot, so you only show up when the weather's good, huh?
Well, I mean, if you leave it to Charlie, he would have kept it going even in the snow, but we really
Yeah.
we don't want anyone hurt.
We have I think paperwork, but I believe Roberts recommended that we were going to do an open house for the Locktender's house, so.
The Kingston Lock Tenders, yes.
Yeah.
But it also seems like Charlie is really pushing for this open house on April 4th.
Yeah, but that's for the archivist. I don't think anybody here is interested in being an archivist.
Oh, okay.
Now in April, do you need some poets to do National Poetry Month? Because I have the group and we're looking for public places to do readings.
Wow.
So if Kingston is interested, I can hook you up with that.
Yeah.
Well,
Our
We'll talk to Churchill.
founder's fee is quite fair.
yeah,
It's
that's
called free.
Free.
Free is a waste of it.
For low budget blues bands, that works out well. But yeah, if you're interested, because my group is very eager.
Yeah, to get out there.
Yeah. Well, some of them have been published, but some of them haven't, and those are the most eager ones. You know, they want to emote, they want to read their stuff, and they need an audience. And we've done this and that. We've done street poetry, which is, you know, we went to National Night Out. We had it there, and we had it at a couple of outings that they had in South Brunswick. And what we do is get people to sit down and we interview them, and then we take what they say in the interview and we turn it into a poem.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
kids love it. That's how you get the young people involved in it. And the most popular thing was the acrostic, where you take their name, like their first name. Like if it's Jack, so you have a 4-line poem with J as the first letter of the first word of the first line, and then A-C-K, you know, that type of thing. And it's really wild when you have the Indian name. You know,
You get but luckily, it's a lot of vowels.
Yeah.
So, you know,
It might be interesting. Clark House in Princeton, do you know what it is?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, they're building a museum presently about the property.
Good.
Where
The clock on the Battle Person property?
Yeah, they're actually, we had somebody come in and give a talk on that at one of the trustee meetings, and they were talking, he's talking about how they're at the edge of the property. There used to be an apple grove, they're planning on building another one. The
Yeah,
building, they found one of the roads that leads back into the property where apparently one of the family members, a brother,
there were two Clark houses,
yeah,
yeah.
and the second one was supposedly back there. They finally discovered when they were cleaning up that there actually was a path there. So the museum is supposed to be back there and it's supposed to open. What are they talking about? Because I know Robert was talking about putting some of the artifacts that we have at the bartender's house in the museum.
Cool.
So it might be one. It might be something that you would want to talk to them about because they have someone who is paid by the Princeton who does talks from the on the battlefield
Okay, nice.
about the battlefield. You really give a great presentation.
Yeah, I've been down to, I've been in that, yeah. I was in the controversy over the Einstein Institute. They wanted to build on an area where they said, no, this is a battle area, so you can't do it. There's a big fight over that.
Yeah.
And,
They were talking also about, behind where the columns are,
yeah,
that's where there's a cemetery back there.
alleged.
Yeah, well, he said it's actually true, but because he's the historian for the battlefield now, whether it's true or not.
Yeah, that's one of the controversial things.
Yeah.
The account, I said that they threw them in a quarry. And it's just a question of which quarry did they throw the bodies, British and American. Yeah.
I'm ready when you are, if you want to
Are
get.
you ready? Ready
Yeah,
to
no,
roll?
it's been 5 minutes.
Oh, you got 5
No,
minutes?
it's been 5 minutes.
Oh, we should have said something.
That's fine. It's all right.
Do we know who's tuned in or?
Nobody yet, but I hope some people join in.
Well, let's roll. Let's
Yeah,
roll.
go ahead. It'll be recorded either way. So, I'll get this started. So, thank you for everyone who came tonight in person. This is our first in-person Historical Society meeting of the year. And we want to continue these as time goes on throughout the year. To introduce myself, my name is Callan Amy. I am a longtime South Brunswick resident, went through school here my whole life, went to college out of state, and have come back and am currently finishing my library science degree at Rutgers, and I am our new local history librarian. Not on paper yet. Once I get my diploma, that will be my official title, but I'm operating in those capacities right now. And I am working with our historic materials to make them more accessible and preserve them for the future, providing interesting ways to make things accessible. And also working with Ed to work on these presentations and continue the work that Randy did before me by recording them and running them about interesting topics related to local, state, or national themes and things like that. So tonight in our presentation, Remembering Herstory, celebrating the impact of women in South Brunswick. Our focus this year, or this month, was to find women from our archives using the files that we have on them, which Ed has there, and come up with names that we haven't covered in previous presentations. And so hopefully we get to share some stories about women recent, farther away, that we may know or remember, and tell a little bit more about their impact on their community, stuff like that. So yeah, and I'll get this rolling here. You're up.
Okay, this is our first modern outstanding woman. And Kellen, is it all right if I get through the 2026 celebration part of this? Just get it,
Yeah.
because it's not really the main thing that we're doing. But since we're celebrating the 2026 1776, I thought it would be good, since we don't have a Molly Pitcher in this local area. Now, I'm talking about South Ward,
Right,
which was the original name for the area. So that you have to expand it a little bit and think about the other little communities, the hamlets that were involved in it, just like South Brunswick Township was involved in it. And if you take that area, what I did was, and this is just a sample list. And you can hold on to this, and I apologize for not being able to type it.
Yes,
Okay, but, you know, the expression stand by your man. Well, what I did was I took some of the outstanding militiamen of the South Ward area. And, remember, a lot of the guys were young and they weren't married yet. But I did find, some who were married, and, here they are. And these are people from the South Ward who actually existed. So now you can see the spouses of the militiamen who fought during the revolution in the South Ward. And there's some well-known names there. You have Hannah Applegate, Euphemia Longstreet Bastido, Sarah Dean, Mary Deere, Elizabeth Sutphen McDowell, Magdalena Claire Hancock, and so forth down the line. The list is incomplete. And at one time sometime in the future, I'll be able to complete the list. But I wanted to share that with you so you could get an idea that there were women who really had to struggle during the American Revolution, especially when their husbands were off fighting, because, you know, these guys are farmers. And who's in charge of the farm when the man is gone? Well, the wife is in charge, and she has to run the whole show. And luckily, these militiamen were maybe gone for a month, maybe 2 months, but then they were back. But you can imagine if you had the wife of a husband who was a soldier, who was in the regular Continental Army and was away for years. And then the wife was running the show for the farm. And you're talking about a tremendous amount of work and management and so forth that would have to go on. So these women were stalwarts. I mean, they went through a whole mess. And then when the Hessians came around, they were raiding places and so forth. And there are examples of women who got the muskets out and they were shooting and scaring soldiers away, that type of thing. But I don't have any specific stories for you on it. However, what I did was, and I have some more notes, these are the famous women of New Jersey. And I did not put the most famous one on the list. Okay. And so these are ones you may or may not know, you may haven't heard of. And again, I apologize, I wasn't able to type this, but if you have trouble reading, you can ask about it towards the end of the meeting. But some of these people did some outstanding things during the American Revolution. And a couple of them are associated with Princeton, such as Annis Boudinot Stockton. And then I added, let me see, who else did I have on here? Margaret Eaton Berry. You know her as the widow of John Berry down at Rockingham. So there's some names here that you might remember, but there are also some names that could enhance your knowledge of what was going on there as far as women in history. And it was interesting, I found some women who had organized a writing group during the American Revolution. And these women went on to be leaders of getting women the right to vote in New Jersey during the American Revolution. And remember, we were one of the few ex-colony states that had women voting during the American Revolution. New Jersey was in the forefront of it. And then the politicians later on took it away from the women, then they had to fight to get it back. But I find this a very interesting list. So it's yours to keep, and whatever you get out of it, that's fine. Now, Kellen, we want to start with Carol,
Yep.
Barrett.
Yeah.
You're going in alphabetical
Yeah, the order you have is the order that we're.
Right. Did you want to go over your points first and then I can add anything to it?
Oh, no, I mean, we just, in our presentation, we obviously, Ed does a lot more of the speaking for each particular subject, but in any of the bullets that we included here, I just wanted to briefly summarize some of the contributions that they made locally, and what they did over their lifetime, whether that was living here, or moving here and working from a particular place. So Carol Barrett, our first individual, worked on township council. And interestingly enough, after we do some extra research, reading through the newspapers that we have digitized about South Brunswick, she won her seat by 3 votes, which is really cool. Being that, and that was after a recount as well. She became the deputy mayor of South Brunswick and served in various council positions until 2009. She then left that seat to be on the county freeholder position, and was a longtime worker in local and county government. And she had first begun as a county clerk. Locally, she had really put a lot of effort in supporting the purchase of the Van Dyke Farm for greater preservation in 2009. So.
Right. And the Van Dyke Farm is important for us because that goes back to colonial times. And the Van Dyke family was big in the South Ward on the 2 borders. Now, the Van Dyke Farm is the one on Davidson Mill Road, set way back from the road. And the other Van Dykes are over on the border there with Mapleton and the stone house there. Now, that's the same family. And they were slavers, and they had slaves. And one of the interesting things about that, preserving that Van Dyke Farm, is the slave quarters have been preserved, and they're behind the kitchen. They say, and I haven't seen it, but I've heard descriptions of it, so how tiny it is, and the number of people that were in there, and so forth. She was instrumental in helping to preserve that. Okay, I just have a couple of things to add. What I did with this list, Kellen, I tried to find out exactly what part of South Brunswick they were living in. And of course, Carol was in Monmouth Junction. As we go through the list, one of the interesting things I wanted to find out was who wins. What part of South Brunswick wins? There's a number of outstanding women. And we'll see that towards the end. See if you can guess. But anyway, I have just a couple of things. When she was on the board of chosen freeholders, she took Crabill's place. And David Crabill is well known as a freeholder. He really was a legend in his own time. And so she replaced a legend and did a very good job. She was involved in organizing the first union for public employees. And she served as president of that union for a time. This is for clerical workers and healthcare workers. And this was in the county. And she pushed to expand services for senior citizens. She was on the Middlesex County Workforce Investment Board, the American Cancer Society, and the Jail and Bail Committee. I don't know what that's about, but it sounds impressive. So she's an outstanding civil servant. And what we're talking about here are outstanding women. They wouldn't have made our list unless they were outstanding.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we have Andrea Brackfeld, who, interestingly enough, she is a relatively well-known jazz and Latin flautist who was a longtime resident of the Kendall Park neighborhood. She had released 10 albums / records over her career, with her most recent being Evolution, which came in 2022, according to her personal website. She's played hundreds of shows well into mid-2025, and was a longtime educator in our community, working with a variety of music groups, both in South Brunswick, outside South Brunswick, and no longer lives locally, but has moved to Baltimore to be closer to family. But she's a very interesting career, has played at a number of relatively famous venues across the country for jazz, and with relatively famous jazz musicians, if that's your thing. And she publicly releases all this info on her website, and she's a really interesting career. So
Right. You could say that she's an international musician, flautist, and her specialty is Latino jazz. And because you showed up, here is her complete discography.
Wow.
And so if you want to purchase her music, you now have the list to do that. And if you can get one down to Keller. I got one. Oh, you got one? Okay. All right. And this is front and back. And if you turn it over, you'll see that she has done a ton of CD albums. And I have listened to some of her music, and it is outstanding. She is well practiced flautist, and in the jazz thing, you know, and incorporating the flute into the jazz and so on. And then it's a specialty type. It's the Latino jazz. And she did spend some time in Venezuela honing her craft and picking up a lot of things that got her involved in that type of thing. The band that she was with is called Phoenix Rising. And you could Google that and you could get some information on that. But she did spend 2.5 years in Venezuela. And she graduated from the Manhattan School of Music. And she won some Lifetime Achievement Award, the Chico O'Farrill Latin Jazz USA Award. She won the Louis Armstrong Award. And she did some local performances too. You know the Jazz Cafe that they advertise? They have the sessions over at the municipal building down the basement, I believe. And she has performed there too. I would say she was a member of the South Brunswick Arts Commission. And she's jammed with some famous jazz artists. Tito Puente, that's a name you might be familiar with, and Ruben Blades. So she's been around. She also opened for Chick Corea, and he's famous in Latin jazz music too. So this is an internationally known person, and I put her number 2 of people in music in South Brunswick as far as fame, with Don Fagan as number 1, Steely Dan, and then she'd be number 2. All right.
And we felt like it's important to highlight her because having someone who's great at music is, you know, it's awesome, but having someone who finds so much success from our community in a particular instrument that kind of breaks barriers, I think is pretty exciting as well. So next up, we have Maya Breitbart, who was a 1996 graduate of South Brunswick High School. I found through reading the newspapers that she was a member of multiple rec basketball teams in the late 1980s, which was in various Central Post articles, which I found really interesting that they included her, like saying she scored however many points, which I just thought was a funny thing to include. She received her PhD in cellular biology from San Diego State University and is now received a distinguished university professor of biological oceanography at the University of South Florida. In 2013, she was named a member of a Brilliant 10 by Popular Science magazine, honoring 10 emerging scientists in their respective fields. She's still an active educator at South Florida, and it was really exciting doing research into her work. Obviously, her advancements in science are beyond my level of understanding, but are very interesting overall and are well recommended for her, you know, her work.
Okay, and one of the things that I noticed as we were doing the research on this is that these women are quite versatile. Like you mentioned, the basketball. And she was described in one of the news articles, and she described herself as a nerd type student, because she's really into the science and all that. Outstanding in that. But two other kids, she looked like, oh, she's just a brainiac and not really socializing and all that. But she was big in Girl Scouts. That's where she got turned on with the science and all that. And she is also a photographer of note. And some of her photographs have been in some journals and magazines. She's a nature photographer, so taking pictures of landscapes, swamps, and animals and that sort of thing. And that sort of shows her versatility. Again, I'm with Kellen as far as she's way above us as far as understanding what in the world she's researching on. But it's a big deal. And it has to do with identifying the things that can identify the viruses that can cause problems. In other words, diseases in animals, plants, and humans. So this is a big deal. And she is she's one of the top people in her field. And she has been singled out for that.
Yeah, she's published a number of articles about various topics, which are
Yeah.
also available. Something else I found interesting that I couldn't fit on the slide, there's a number of articles from when she was younger, about her. She did a number of foreign exchange programs. I can't remember which country it was in, but due to global conflict, like they were writing about her not being able to travel because of this particular conflict. But she had done a few exchange programs with students from different, I believe students from different countries as well, which is pretty cool. During her middle and high school years, I think it was. So. Next up, we have Ethel Emmons, who was one of our focuses on social media this month, primarily because I had never heard of her, but I picked her file out of our archives and wanted to learn more about her. She was born in Jamesburg in 1890, and Ethel moved to Monmouth Junction, where she lived for 89 years. She operated a general store with her husband, T. Clifford. She was also the treasurer of the Miller Memorial Presbyterian Church for 40 years and known by her 4 rules to live by, which are live day by day, do first things first, accept your condition, and learn to live with it. What was really interesting about her is I couldn't fit it on the slide, but we have a photo of her that was published when she was older, but the newspaper had found a photo of her from one of the original like one-room schoolhouses in town of her class photo when she was of a child with her teacher. We featured this on social media, but it was her with her class, and then her future husband was also in the picture, which is super cool. I don't think we have a copy of that photo. That might be a bit in her file, which is where I got it from, which we could look at later. But it's really interesting to see that she was here for such a long time, and she also worked as a correspondent for the Home News for over 30 years, I think it was, and a number of other similar secretarial or clerk related positions.
Right.
Besides helping own a store with their husband.
Yeah, Ethel is an example, and I'm glad that we included her in this list. Salt of the earth, steeped in the history of the local area, going way back. You may not know this, but the Emmons family is almost as old as the Higgins family as far as the founding of the area. And the irony of that is that the Emmons family started just north of the Higgins family on Route 27. And they had a farm that was adjacent to the Higgins family. Now, the Higgins family had that red and yellow house, that's when you come down the hill and you go past the Amish market, and it's over on the right, and you have the family cemetery on the other side. Well, the Emmons family owned property on both sides too. So this T. Clifford Emmons, whom she married, this goes way back. There's different spellings of the name. This spelling is one of several. Emmons is one of the spellings. And of course, back in colonial times, you know, they were corrupted the spelling. So this is why you have all these different spellings, but it's the same family. So this is a family that goes way back to the roots of the South Ward. And so she's an example of that. And being in the memorial, the Miller Memorial Church, that's another big thing because of the founder of that. It's a form of Presbyterianism, which was very radical in its early days. And then they finally conformed and then were allowed to come back into the regular Presbyterian church. You know, like the one in Kingston, that first Presbyterian church. Well, the Miller Church was a rebel Presbyterian church. And if you were to ask some people, if you were back in the time that Ethel was alive, she could tell you about those roots of the church. But that was quite controversial. That was a big national controversy thing. If Reverend Miller, he was the Presbyterian Church said, if you could establish 5 churches of your denomination, then we will recognize you. And he was able to establish 4. He never got the 5th one. He tried, but he never got it. And one of the ones was the one that's on Ridge Road in Monmouth Junction. And Ethel was in there in those early years, not the very first years, but she was in there.
Is that the one across the street from?
That's the one that's an Indian
Yes, so
temple,
it's-
church now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where was the general store? You know,
The general store, I think, was up from there. There was a hotel that burned down.
Mhm.
And I'm not exactly sure where it was, but it was somewhere in that complex because that's where all your businesses are in Monmouth Junction.
It didn't say in her files about necessarily how much, like where the store was, but if it was in that Monmouth Junction area, it's most likely.
Yeah, and interesting that you bring that up because you may not know this, but they filmed a Western in Monmouth Junction. Mainly because of the railroad tracks. And that the store was close to the railroad track and the hotel. And it was a film, I think it was a college group, I think it was from Columbia. And they wanted a Western scene. They were doing this Western, and they wanted a Western scene. So they picked Monmouth Junction, like it was Dodge City, Kansas, or something like that. And it could have been the Emmons General Store that was in that movie.
Wow.
It was back in silent movie times.
yeah, it's kind of hard to picture Monmouth Junction now, you know, because Monmouth Junction today is not the Monmouth Junction.
Oh, no,
I mean,
no.
before they put the bridge over the stupid.
Yeah. But yeah, salt of the earth,
Yeah.
Ethel Emmons.
And I like her 4 things to live by.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
It makes for a stress treat.
You could be the Ben Franklin of Monmouth Junction.
Exactly.
so next up, we have Elizabeth Andrews, who grew up in Brooklyn, New York. She was a 25-year resident of South Brunswick, also lived in Kendall Park. She was known through our community for her artistic ability. She was a member of the National Woodcarvers Association, according to the Central Post in 1971. She also created art using watercolors and oils. As a self-proclaimed naturalist, Andrews took inspiration from her various travels, and she had passed away in 2002 and was honored with a tribute at the Senior Center through the showing of her art, which that photo was taken like a year or so before she had passed, where she was posing with her work that was on display actually at the Witherell property when more public events were done there. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. She's a late bloomer. She really got serious about the art later in life. And note that she's from Kendall Park. And she grew up in Brooklyn. And this is a traditional thing of the people from New York coming and getting a house in Kendall Park. Now, I think this was later on in her life. But another thing that I like, and all the creative people here, the artists are, seem to me to be all self-taught. Didn't really have formal training, but became outstanding in the work that they did. Now, if you look at the picture of her, you don't think first off a wood carver, but she was really big in wood carving, and she would take like plaques and carve into them and so forth, and do relief and have a three-dimensional effect. I've seen some of her work, and we already had a wood carver, Leon Bibble, who is the #2 artist under
George Ceil.
George Ceil. And so Elizabeth Andres joins that select group of artists in South Brunswick who expanded from just the traditional, doing a watercolor on a canvas, and really exploring and going to the limits of what they could do. And she's again an outstanding example of somebody who took it upon herself to teach herself how to do something creative and really come through on it. So I admire her quite a bit. She was basically into painting of animals. That was a big thing for her, and so nature, that sort of thing. What can I say?
Yeah.
She was outstanding.
And you had mentioned, not that it deals with this exactly, but Leon Bibble and George Ceil. A long time ago, the library had a sculpture of George Ceil's. That sculpture will be going back in our new wing. There's a space for it that has been constructed. And then some of Leon Bibble's art that we do have possession of that is being worked on will be hung in the library as well. Which is news to me as of today, so I figured I'd share. Which is exciting to be able to share work by relatively famous artists in their field, especially George Ceil, who was an extremely notable artist who.
Do we have any examples of Elizabeth's work?
I don't know. Where did you see her art at?
Oh, on the computer.
On the computer? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
it-
not sure
Because
where.
it sounds like it was at the Witherhill Historic, so I wonder where it went after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's odd. Like with George Ceil, his stuff is in South Brunswick. The daughter has it, tons of stuff, and it could be here, there, and everywhere. Now we have the one that you're talking about,
Yeah.
and that's a two residents of South Brunswick.
Yeah. Well, and then too, George Ceil. Some of his stuff has been replicated in other. He's famous.
Yeah, he's
At
international.
the New Princeton Art Museum, there's one of his sculptures
Yeah.
out, which is awesome. That museum's great.
Yeah.
A bit.
Well, now that we bring her to our attention,
So maybe there's a way we can.
Now it's
we'll
time
be
to
working
talk.
around, because there'll be exhibits around somewhere here, and so you'll want them, and maybe a permanent type of
Yeah,
thing.
if there's a family
But-
member that we could find who maybe has some of her art left, obviously that would be super.
Yeah, some of her wood carvings would be great.
Yeah, that would
That'd
be
be
I
a great thing
would
to
like
show.
to see some of our female artists
Yeah.
also.
Sure.
Yeah.
sure. So our next one. Here we go. Vimala Glade is another artist who was a South Brunswick resident, who used her art and very publicly spoke about her art to help with pain caused by arthritis. She came to town in 1993. She's self-taught as a painter who began, quote, scribbling with a pencil during her childhood years in Orissa, India. A quote from the patch in 2005, she had said, through teaching, Miss Glade, feels she can help others overcome their difficulties and think positively just as she has. She's done a few exhibits through South Brunswick and North Brunswick. That picture there is from I believe in North Brunswick, but there were very few pictures of her that we had found besides her physical files. So she's another local artist. Not sure where she resides now, but yeah.
Well, she was in Kendall Park.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she's still in Kendall Park, but it's another Kendall Park artist.
Yeah. Do you have anything else on here? There wasn't a ton, but it felt like we should.
Yeah, well, I'm quite sensitive about art because I'm into that myself. And the thing that I found interesting about her, overcoming her handicap. And because I know a woman in town who gave up painting, and she was outstanding, but because of the arthritis, she gave it up. But this woman persisted. And again, a self-taught artist, that's one thing. Again, the handicap thing. But the third thing is she was experimenting. She was expanding. As she was doing the artwork, she was trying different things. And one of the things that Vimala got into was mixing her paints in special ways. And I thought it was interesting, and I'm going to try this myself because I used all found material. So the paint that I use is all found. I never purchased anything. Heaven forbid I spent money on it. Okay, but she would take acrylics and she'd take watercolors and she'd mix them because that gave her a shine that she didn't get if she just used one and not the other. And so she's not only doing the paintings, but she's experimenting and coming up with these techniques that she finds pleasing and that other people find pleasing too. And then she also, in one of the articles, mentioned putting glitter in the paint. This was on some painting she did of people in the Indian clothing, the gowns and that sort of thing. And she was putting the glitter in the paint to have that gleaming quality to what she was doing. So, you got to give her a lot of credit for doing this type of thing and overcoming her handicap and going a step beyond that. And not just doing, well, that's nice. And I understand she's handicapped and she did something that looks like her grandma Moses. She was well beyond that. So that's interesting.
And then I believe a number of the articles that had mentioned her also, she was very into helping provide art for the community. So, like this photo here, she was also working with maybe young adults and community members on art classes and things like that.
I think she did some stuff with the senior citizens.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Yep. All right. Next up, we have Archana Jogulkar, who is a relatively famous Indian actress and classical dancer who was active in film and dance from 1987 to 2012. She has held multiple lead and background roles in 19 films and movies, predominantly South Asian films. You could find those all on Wikipedia. And she's the founder and CEO of Archana Arts, which is a Kathak dance academy. And there's 3 locations in New Jersey, and they seem to be very current and continuously operating. And where she helps provide opportunities for individuals to learn more about history and culture through dance, specifically South Asian cultures and stories, because so much of South Asian art is also storytelling at the same time, like many forms of public art. And her dance academy seemed to be extremely successful. There's a lot of great stories talking about her inspiration coming up in dance, but also the people she learned from in India as well as other countries as well. So wanted to highlight her efforts as a South Brunswick resident too.
Yeah, I think her dance studio is in Monmouth Junction. One of the
there's a few around.
And of course, as the South Asian community has expanded and is growing, then there's a crying need for this type of thing. And she was at the forefront of it, and is again quite an impressive person who is also versatile. She's doing the dance thing. She's been acting, and she's quite well known, mostly within her community. So that's another thing that we need to do is to promote these people who are within a certain community so that other people know about them and can appreciate that sort of thing.
I think it'd be super interesting once like the theater opens, maybe her students have a rehearsal here or a dance performance here. That would be something that
Yeah.
I think I would love to learn more about because I find all of this extremely fascinating, and I'm sure she would have plenty to say if she's still local about her experience in town and what that means to be able to help represent her interests in her community through dance as well. So, yeah. Next up, we have Dorothy Corer, who came to South Brunswick in 1985, and she taught for over 35 years. She taught social studies primarily at the Crossroads Middle Schools, and was present. She was presented with multiple awards for her efforts to make learning exciting. There's a quote that said, "Ms. Corer said the project is designed to, I think, sorry, not teach her students that they are individuals who are important in history. History is people." And what people do, and that's from a Central Post article. And on the right, she was being presented with a T-shirt after being honored by Disney with an American Teacher Award. So, yeah.
Yeah, this one is closest to my heart because she was a humanities teacher. And in a public school, humanities is defined as a teacher of English and social studies when they combine it. And I was founding that program in New Brunswick at the time that she was doing this in South Brunswick. I didn't know her at the time, and she didn't know me, but we had an awful lot in common. And one of the key things with her technique is the hands-on experience of the kids. So, in other words, have you seen the movie Dead Poets Society with Robin Williams? And where they're ripping the pages out of the books and, we get rid of the lecture, get rid of the textbook, and let's see how creative we can be as we learn. And that's basically what a humanities teacher is doing, to bring the talents and the skills and the joy of learning out in the kids. And by doing these activities and so forth, and some of them can be really wild activities. And there are some pictures I think we have in the archive collection that show she's sitting at a desk and he has an array of all the things that the kids did, and some of the stuff is really wild looking. But what you do is you allow the kids to express themselves, and they're learning skills and so forth, but they're learning it in an interesting and attention-grabbing way, rather than the boring take notes, listen to the lecture, that type of thing. So it was breaking away from the old traditional way of teaching. And one of the unfortunate things with education today is that it's curriculum driven. And a humanities teacher has to sort of rebel against the curriculum driven thing. So being this type of teacher is an endangered species. Because if the state mandates this, and then the school district mandates it, then the teacher has to follow along with it. And sometimes, it's like in social studies, we have a challenge of trying to get the teachers to do something about 1776 and 2026, and they really don't have the room in their curriculum.
But through something we're putting on in a few weeks, working with the high school library, we found an exciting way to present history to them through a panel of myself and Randy and a few other folks, where the high schoolers will get an indoor in-school field trip, where we're going to be presenting parts of the Ken Burns Revolution documentary and talking about how it relates to town to try to generate more interest than just sitting in class. And so it's there's definitely a lot of efforts being taken, but you were right to say that in maybe a public school level, some of these experiences aren't as common. So you have to really reach to try to find ways to make it engaging. So it seemed at the time there's a number of articles in our database where she was talking about her students going on field trips and designing really exciting in-class projects to help engage with hands-on learning while creating something else to talk about history, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Yeah, this South Brunswick School District is blessed because you can go all the way back to Doris Curran. She was a famous teacher who was a township historian at one time. And she would take the kids out, nature, field trips, that sort of thing. She's a tough cookie, but she was into that thing of the hands-on experience. And the superintendent, Kimple, he was before your time, you were there, but he was big on these branching out and doing these unusual things and so forth. A lot of school districts and a lot of administrators, they don't like that because, like when I was in New Brunswick, the key there was law and order. And if you had what's called a soundy class, and that would mean there's a lot of activity, kids moving around, they're doing this and doing that. And if an administrator walked by, the teacher would probably get a reprimand. But if you had a military type of instructor and everybody's in the rows and they're separated so they can't cheat one another and their heads are down and they're either reading the book or they're taking notes or something like that, and the teacher's telling them this is the way it's going to be, lecture, and the administrator walks by, that person's going to get a high evaluation because there's law and order, there's structure in the class. The problem is the quality and quantity of learning that's going on. And now this lady is a prime example of getting the kids to enjoy education and really get something out of education. And she was rewarded for it many times.
Next up, we wanted to highlight Ginny Kraft, who, for me at least, someone who was influential in my life, who was a long-time educator, musician, and performing arts leader in South Brunswick, who began working in the early 1980s, predominantly with her husband, Mark, in the music department at the high school when it was at South, and then at the current South Brunswick High School. She taught for over 30 years. She was known as the voice of South Brunswick for her various performances at public events, singing national anthems across the community, and she led multiple doesn't mean to describe it, just because I have personal experience with this, led multiple groups to award-winning performances, including the South Brunswick High School choirs, marching bands, winter guards, and the Puritano Players drama group at the high school as well. Ginny she lives locally-ish in Pennsylvania now, but she was from experience, if you listen to what she was saying, and she would drive you to make you your best self. She was tough, but that reflected well upon our groups because we were successful. And I'm very thankful to have had her as a teacher, not as much directly, but I interacted with her and was in the marching band for 3 years.
She was the head of the marching band.
Yeah, she directed.
She had a lot of nicknames.
Yeah, her commitment to the performing arts groups at the high school level, I think, were fantastic, and has established the group that it continues to be today. So wanted to highlight her because we haven't spoken about her before. So
yeah, one of the things about it when we first came to South Brunswick was the marching band, color guard, and all that were winning all these trophies, all these awards. And the football team was losing games, and the band would get out there and they'd perform and it'd be fantastic. And then the football team would get out there and they'd fumble the ball, they'd lose the game, but at least we had the band to cheer for, and it was because of the crafts. And I got to hand it to her because she could have been a professional vocalist, like in a band or whatever. Or,
she
showbiz singing, that type of thing. She sacrificed that.
She did a ridiculous amount of music and taught longer than her husband Mark in the capacity that she did. Like, she was the main director for the choir groups, and the marching band was just winning. And her impact was immediate. And in the art newspaper article, it shows that. But she took the groups everywhere, winning national championships, state championships. And I think for me as a student, speak higher to just from experience, but it was she's very impactful for a large group of students. And when we posted about her on Facebook this year, is we wanted to do we honored like 3 women for our social media posts from the library side of things. The comments were just expansive, and it was one of our most interacted with posts in a long time, which speaks more to people from 20 years ago talking about their experiences with her. People she taught them, and then she taught their kids, and then it was like that. It was that kind of experience. So for me, I know a lot more about it, but her commitment to South Brunswick Performing Arts was great. And Chris, our director, worked with her for a number of years as well, and also learned and performed under her as well. So yeah, it's really interesting. Next up, we had Mary Leck, who was pointed out there by that red arrow. She was a local photographer, artist, and outdoor enthusiast, and was a longtime supporter of the Abbott Marshlands, which is located in Hamilton Township. The Marshlands organization named an award in her honor. She is still alive, and the award is continuously presented to people within the organization who exhibit a degree of excellence and commitment in their craft. She has over 30 plus years of teaching experience and is an emeritus professor of biology at Rider University. So her focus very much in the sciences, who lived in South Brunswick and did a significant number of commitment to working with nature in our area, a little bit south of us. So.
Right, another Kendall Park resident. And she did a lot for women, so she was really big in promoting the idea of she had a women in science program at Rider, and she was recognized by the Girl Scouts. She did a lot of work with the Girl Scouts, especially with that environmental thing. And so she was awarded a Woman of Distinction by the Girl Scouts, and she was Rider's Woman of the Year in 1994. So this is an outstanding person who led by example and inspired a lot of women to achieve as best that they could. I think we're working with a nature thing. When you see the picture here, I believe that this must be at the wetlands thing, right? Yeah.
So yeah, and if you look her up, there's a few like articles that mention her interests and her career that are pretty interesting in some older news outlets. So next up, we have Elaine McGrath, who joined South Brunswick in 1997 as the new athletic director at South Brunswick High School. At the time, it was just coming from Crossroads into the current building. She oversaw countless GMC, General Middlesex Conference, General Middlesex Conference and state championships. She said one of her early challenges was organizing the size of SBHS athletics. She had come from a smaller district where the number of athletes was significantly less, and even in 1997, it was still much larger. She retired in the early 2020s, and I believe has been replaced by former gym teacher of mine in Mr. Hendricks, which is really interesting. I played sports at South Brunswick, so she was the athletic director when I was there. And in 2025, she was selected to the DAANJ Director of Athletic Association of New Jersey Hall of Fame, as well as numerous other awards and honors over her career for her longstanding commitment to managing athletic competition in a school district. So, yeah.
She was a person that I had run-ins with, but of course I admired her. She was a tough cookie, and I had formed a cricket club in New Brunswick. I was bringing together kids from Jamaica and kids from British Guyana. They were the children of people who had been in families servants of the British in that country. And it was a very small group in New Brunswick, but I started the Asian American Culture Club, and I asked them, well, what sport would you like to play? Maybe we could get outside and do some things. Again, I'm thinking like like the humanities thing. Let's get out, do this and that. They said cricket. Oh, cricket. Okay, I have a little experience with cricket. So that's fine. So then I was asking around various communities if they wanted to form a league, and have competition. And I got Piscataway involved, I got Woodbridge involved, I got Old Bridge involved. And so it was working. I went to ask Elaine about South Brunswick being involved in it. Now, isn't it ironic the number of South Asian kids that are in now, and now they're thinking of having a cricket competition.
They have a cricket,
They're fields.
yeah, they have a field over there by Rome.
See,
But this would be public school cricket.
Yes.
And she, no, I can't fit it into the schedule. No, those games take too long. She's giving me a whole big rundown. Oh, okay. So we went ahead, we were the first ones in Middlesex County to play cricket competitively. And we had a blast at it. It was only a club thing.
Yeah. I think they still have, well, when I was there, they had a club for students to go do.
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it picked up eventually
Oh, yeah.
because, overwhelming. It's like
It's
the barbarians at the gate, eventually the Roman Empire is going to collapse, so, but anyway, she's good. I mean, she was solid. It's just that she and we weren't on the same page.
All right. Next up, we have Anne McKendrick, who was born in South Brunswick in 1923. She owned Ann's Market on Davidson's Mill Road. She worked on her farm all her life and sold vegetables and flowers well into her 80s. Interestingly enough, she had 2 pet peacocks, which I think is just very fascinating. And a quote that I thought was interesting from her. It's simple, but it speaks a lot. It's a lot of work, but not if you like what you do. And that's from a Sentinel article in 2005. And the picture on the right just shows her at her older years working on her market in town. So
Right, and she's salt of the earth, just like Emmons. And she's representative of that rural agricultural tradition that South Brunswick had until Kendall Park came along. Kendall Park changed everything. But it's interesting that with these farms, and she had a 22-acre farm, which was small. It wasn't big, but look what she did with it, and had a thriving business and so forth. But when the township asked me to give them a list of the oldest businesses in South Brunswick, this was the Chamber of Commerce, working with the municipal building, the mayor and all that. And I said, well, the results that I'm going to find, you may not be happy with. Because when you say the word business, you might be thinking of retail, you might be thinking of like IBM or one of the banks or something like that. And I said, they're all going to be farms because some of the farms go way back, like Von Thune's, Habiac Farm, and so forth. And these are the ones that I found were the oldest. So they were good sports about it because when I gave them the list, then they went ahead and gave out awards to the oldest businesses in South Brunswick. They were all farms, and she would have been involved in it, but I don't think she was around at the time that they gave. This was only a couple of years ago, and she was in it for a long time, and so I admire her spunk. But she's representative of the old time South Brunswick.
yeah. Next up, we have Daphne Powell, who has a very interesting background. She was a professional pianist who came to Monmouth Junction in 1984 and lived in South Brunswick. And she worked with the Friends of the Library for 17 years, so kind of close to home here, and helped instruct. She helped really develop and lead residents who needed help learning English, kind of an early period of ESL education, especially through the library. She sponsored and adopted her son Zoltan Borbeli from Hungary in 1959. She also had a 30-plus year career at the Mason Grove School of Arts at Rutgers, and she had passed in 2005 and was honored through a concert series in her name, which was held as a township level event. And that was the picture with her and her husband from early on in their careers. I think he was also, might have been a musician as well.
Oh, John Powell?
Yeah, yeah.
He was a tenor.
Okay.
So he was a formally trained tenor.
Yep.
And I would imagine that they performed together. In other words, she was on the piano and he was doing the singing, opera, that sort of thing. They did play at Metropolitan Opera House, and I tried to find a discography on them, but they're very early on, and they're not in the popular music vein. So if they did recordings, they probably would be on 78s, I would believe. You know, those were your breakable records going way back.
Way back.
But that's another thing that I'll be searching and trying to find, because it would be great in the library to have some examples of the music. And that's another thing, you know, we're talking about the wooden sculptures for the artist who's doing that. Well, with these recordings, I mean, I have the Steely Dan music. Okay, I have some of Andrea's stuff, and it would be interesting to get Daphne Powell because she was pretty well known on the national scene, but at the time it was not, you know, it's not in the popular music vein. So with the formal type of music and so forth, that's for a certain audience. And at one time it was big, but after a while, you know, the classical music and all that has sort of taken a sidetrack to all the loud stuff that you hear today.
Next up, we have Sherry Rugel, who is also a Kendall Park resident and is a professional photographer who worked with the South Brunswick Arts Commission as well as a number of other organizations. She helped found the nonprofit Revival Village to help support homeless communities in New Jersey, and was recognized widely and publicized for her work. Tent City, which focused on homeless communities in Lakewood. The picture on the right is from an earlier photo from one of the poster patch newspapers, with her taking a photo of an individual at her home studio in Kendall Park. I believe she still does a few shows here and there, and she still takes photos, obviously, but it's less prominent in her as a professional career. But she was a local resident who did a number of things with the South Brunswick community.
Yeah, I think she was a Kendall Park resident, but she had a studio in Kingston.
Okay.
I don't know if it's still there, but I have the title of it was Photography by Sherry Rubel. Or Rebecca.
Yeah.
And I, as I understand it, it was her father who turned her on to the photography because he was an amateur photographer. He did landscapes. She concentrated on people, and one of her big things was this photos of the people down in Lakewood at the tent city. I think they wiped that tent city out. I don't know if it's still there or not. But I know Hank Callett, who's a South Brunswick resident, he wrote a lot. He had several poems about that tent city. So that was featured in poetry and featured in the photography. And I'm sure that those two work together on some things. But she also did Faces of Mexico. That was one of her famous showings. Living Legacies. Those were of people at Buckingham Place, old people and handicapped people, that sort of thing. She was very much into black and white photography. Again, an outstanding person in the creative field.
All right, I believe this is our last individual for the evening. So we have Daphne Thorpe, who began working at the township in 1973. She was a township clerk who was elected to the Municipal Clerks Educational Foundation in 1997. She had retired at that time to pursue that role after 27 years of being a township clerk. In a number of articles, she talks about being able to meet with former President Ronald Reagan during his early election campaigns, and she has some pictures with, I don't know if it was with him, but maybe others on his campaign. She was a longtime advocate for education relating to clerk positions and obtained numerous advanced titles related to that position throughout her career. And the photo on the right shows a picture of her working at the municipal building during her career. So,
She served as a state committee woman for the Republican Party for 16 years. And she's quite proud of her planning that she put into the bicentennial. And this was the 1998, because the official government and the official South Brunswick Township thing started in 1798. The records of all those years going into the early 1800s burned in a fire. And I think one of the McDowell houses, they were in charge of the records, and the house burned down and the records went with them. So we don't know a lot of the names of that stuff. But she's one of those civil servants who served many, many years and was a household name in South Brunswick. She was also proud of planning the ceremony for the Olympic torch for the Olympics 1980. The runner who runs from where they had the flame and they run down to where it's going to be held. Well, they had to go through South Brunswick. So she was involved in the planning for all that. And she was also involved, very instrumental in raising the funds for the Veterans Monument. It's in front of the municipal building. So she has left a legacy of examples of things that she did while she was serving the community. So again, an outstanding woman.
and that's it for our subjects for this evening. If you guys have any questions or just want to talk about anything, we're happy to talk about it. So thank you for coming, and please bring your friends next time.
Yeah, tell them we got new
Spread the
babies
word,
there.
and it's just a nice, easy time. We want to keep doing this on the last calendar Wednesday of the month.
Okay.
So that's what we're gonna do, and those will be posted on like the library website as well as online. So I believe the next date that we have booked out would be April. It'll either, I think it's the 29th. I think it'll be either the 22nd or the 29th. So that will come out soon.
Probably the 29th would be better.
Yeah, we could do the 20. We'll do April 29th. At the same time, same place. We have this nice fancy room. So thank you for those who joined online. I saw you guys join, so we appreciate it. I see Lori. So thank you for joining. Maybe hopefully see you next time. I'm gonna stop sharing and the stream here, but thank you. Thanks again. So.
Yeah, this works well with the big screen.